My dad laughed in my face when I pitched my business idea, then handed all my work to my brother. 7 years later, I'm CEO of a multi-million-dollar company and just bought out their failing business for pennies on the dollar. Dad's crying now. Hey, Reddit. My dad and brother always treated me like the family screw-up. So I walked out, built my own company from nothing, and stopped caring what they thought. Turns out they weren't ready to let it go that easy. But before we get into that mess, let me start from the beginning. So, I'm Maria, 32, and I run a construction development company. Not the kind of business everyone posts about on LinkedIn, but the kind where you actually build that matters. My dad, Richard, used to run Monroe Industries, big commercial real estate firm. Had my older brother Derek lined up to take over since we were kids. I was supposed to be the backup plan, the other daughter who'd handle paperwork or whatever. 3 years ago, I pitched Dad on a mixed-use development idea I'd been working on for months. He laughed in my face, told me to stop dreaming and learn the family business properly. 2 weeks later, he handed my entire project portfolio to Derek and made him VP. I walked out that night and never went back. On Monday at 9:40 a.m., I was at my Newark construction site going over electrical plans with my foreman, Tony, when I heard a car door slam. Expensive, different. I looked up and there was a black Mercedes S-Class parked near the fence. My dad got out from the passenger side wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Then Derek climbed out of the driver's seat, sunglasses on, looking like he just stepped out of a yacht club. They didn't see me at first. I was covered in dust, wearing the same clothes as the rest of my crew, just another woman on site. Derek walked up to the fence, looking around like he was inspecting a dumpster. Jesus, this neighborhood's a hole, he said loud enough for half my crew to hear. Why would anyone develop here? Dad was scrolling on his phone. Investment property, trying to get in before the area gentrifies. Flip it in a few years. One of my guys, probably 22 years old, was carrying lumber past them. Derek pointed at him. Hey, buddy, you know who owns this site? We're looking to talk to someone in charge, not you people. The kid looked confused, glanced at me. I shook my head slightly, told him it was fine. He kept walking. Tomo. Tony's jaw tightened. He'd worked for me since the beginning, knew the whole family history. Can I help you, gentlemen? He asked, walking toward the fence. Derek didn't even look at him. Yeah, we need to talk to whoever runs this operation. We're interested in the property. You're looking at her, Tony said, jerking his thumb back at me. That's when Derek finally looked. Actually looked. His expression went from confused to shocked to fake friendly in about 2 seconds. Maria. He pulled his sunglasses down. Holy, what are you doing here? I walked over slowly, wiping concrete dust off my hands. Working. You? Dad looked up from his phone now. Saw me. His face did this thing where he was trying to figure out if he should be embarrassed or condescending. He landed on condescending. Daughter, you're working construction now. He said it like I told him I was collecting cans for recycling. I thought you were doing consulting or something. I am doing something, I said. Derek was looking around the site now, seeing the scope of it. 4 buildings, mixed commercial and residential. Probably 200 units total when it was done. Wait, you work for the developer? Not exactly. Tony was trying not to smile. Maria owns the whole project, bought the land, designed the development, secured the financing. Dad's scrolling hand froze for half a second, then kept moving. Sure she does. His tone made it clear he thought Tony was either lying or mistaken. Derek laughed. Yeah, okay. Our little sister's a real estate mogul now. Good one. I'm serious. We get it. Dad cut him off. You're loyal to your boss. Appreciate that. He said it the way you talk to a kid telling you her dad works for Nintendo. I handed the blueprints to Tony. I've got a flight to catch in a couple hours. Tony, make sure the inspector gets these revised plans. You got it, boss. Where are you going? Seattle. National Industry Summit. I drove off, and in my rearview mirror, they were just standing there next to their Mercedes looking lost. My phone buzzed. Text from my business partner, Jake. Jet's fueled. See you at the airport. Yeah, this was going to be fun. I got to Newark Liberty around 1 p.m., Commercial flights to Seattle were boarding all afternoon, 6-hour slogs with connections in Denver or Chicago. That wasn't my problem, though. I was standing near Gate B7 with my duffel bag, the same one I'd had since college. Black, worn at the corners, still worked fine. I was wearing jeans and a regular button-down. Nothing fancy. Around me, it was the usual airport chaos. Families dragging kids, business people typing on laptops, that one guy yelling into his phone about quarterly reports. Then I heard it, that laugh, Derek's laugh, the one he did when he thought he was being funny in front of people. I turned, and sure enough, there they were. Dad, Derek, and a man I didn't recognize at first. He was dressed business professional, carrying a leather portfolio with the Monroe Industries logo embossed on it. They had matching designer luggage, the kind with the fancy hardshell and built-in phone chargers. The guy in the suit came over with them, and that's when I recognized him. Jackson, my ex from 7 years ago, the one who dumped me 2 months after I left the family company. Last I'd heard through the industry grapevine, he joined Monroe Industries' marketing department about 6 months after we broke up. Guess he'd worked his way up. The portfolio and the summit attendance meant he was somebody's senior director now. They saw me, and Derek's face lit up like Christmas morning. Well, 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 he said, walking over. Told you, Dad. Same flight. Dad looked at my duffel bag, then at their designer luggage. Maria, didn't expect to run into you here. Said I had a flight to catch. Jackson was standing there awkward, trying to figure out if he should acknowledge that we used to date or pretend we were strangers. He went with a weak smile and a small wave. So you're really going to the summit? Derek asked. What airline you on? We're on United First Class. Private charter. The words just sat there for a second. Derek's smile froze. Jackson blinked. Dad's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed, like he was trying to figure out if I was joking. Private charter, Derek repeated slowly. Like, you booked a seat on one of those shared jet things, those net jets or whatever. No. Then what do you mean private charter? The loudspeaker announced boarding for first-class passengers on their flight. Dad picked up his bag. That's us, Maria. I don't know what game you're playing, but lying about? I'm not lying. Private charters cost $20,000 minimum, Dad said. You expect me to believe? My phone buzzed. Text from Jake. Where you at? Captain's asking? I texted back. 2 minutes. Derek was watching me. Who's that? Your Uber driver? Another buzz. Different number. Ms. Hayes, we're ready when you are. Car's out front. About 30 seconds later, a guy in a proper pilot's uniform walked up. Not airport staff, actual flight crew. He had captain's bars on his shoulders, and he was carrying a tablet. Ms. Hayes. Yeah, Captain Stevens. We've completed pre-flight. Weather's perfect. Flight plans filed. Whenever you're ready, we can head out. The area around us went quiet. A businessman with a coffee cup stopped mid-sip. The woman at the gate counter looked over. Dad was staring. Derek's mouth was slightly open. Jackson had his phone out like he was about to record something, but he was just frozen. I picked up my duffel. Let's go. Perfect. The car's right outside. We'll have you wheels up in 15 minutes. Your business partner's already aboard. We started walking toward the exit, not toward the gates, toward the private terminal exit. Captain Stevens was talking about flight time and weather patterns, but I was barely listening. I glanced back once. Dad was standing there with his boarding pass in his hand, other passengers walking around him to get to the gate. Derek was next to him, bags at his feet, just staring. Jackson had lowered his phone. The automatic doors opened, and there was a black SUV waiting. Captain Stevens opened the door for me. After you, ma'am. I climbed in. Through the tinted window, I could see them still standing there watching. Then the door closed, and we pulled away toward the private terminal on the other side of the airport. My phone started buzzing. Text from Derek. What the hell was that? Another one. You actually own a plane? I put the phone face down and looked out at the runway. Jake was already on the jet when I boarded. They were at the airport, I said. He grinned. Please tell me they saw the captain. Front row seats to the whole thing. The engine started up. Jake pulled up his tablet as we taxied. So, the Dubai contract officially cleared this morning. $200 million, 3-year build timeline. They wired the first deposit, hit our account around 9 a.m. Robert confirmed the inspection schedules? Yeah, he sent the revised timeline. We're good on all 4 sites. Newark's ahead of schedule, actually. Should be done by March instead of May. Robert Ross. That's the guy Dad fired 7 years ago. The one who gave me my first real contract. Now he's my VP of operations, and probably the main reason this company actually works. Jake's scrolling through more emails. Your dad's company made the news again. They went public 18 months ago to raise capital. Stocks down 28% from the IPO price, dropped another 6% yesterday. What happened? That casino project in Atlantic City? Apparently Derek's team screwed up the permitting, and now the whole thing's delayed by 8 months. Investors are pissed. I remember that project. I designed the initial proposal 2 months before Dad pushed me out. Had all the permitting research done, environmental impact studies, everything lined up. Then they handed it to Derek, and he just ignored half of it, thought he could skip steps because of the family name. How bad is it? Jake pulled up a financial report. They're bleeding money. Monroe Industries used to employ over 400 people. They're down to about 120 now. That Atlantic City thing was supposed to bring in $40 million. Now it's just a sinkhole eating their reserves. They going to fold? They're already technically insolvent. Debt load of $87 million against book value of maybe $60 million. Banks won't touch them. I give them 12 months before forced bankruptcy. The plane lifted off. That feeling in your stomach as the ground drops away. Through the window, I could see Newark getting smaller, the highways turning into little gray lines. We talked business for the rest of the flight. Dubai timelines, Newark inspections, the usual logistics. Jake pulled up my keynote speech, and we went over the main points. Jake opened his laptop again. Speaking of, we should go over your speech for tonight. Your opening keynote. The whole industry is going to be watching. What time do we land? 3:15. Event starts at 6 hunk, but the VIP reception's at 5 onquach. We're the platinum sponsors, so you'll need to do the press thing first. I looked out the window. Just clouds now, solid white below us. Dad and Derek are going to be there, I say. I know. They don't know Hayes Industrial is the sponsor. Jake grins. Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Derek. Seriously, sis, call me. I turned the phone off and put it in my bag. We landed at 3:18. By 3:30, we were in Manhattan. Jake checked us into the hotel while I headed straight for the venue 4 blocks away. The venue was 4 blocks away, connected to a convention center. I walked over in my jeans and button-down, still carrying my duffel. Security at the entrance checked my ID against a list, saw my name, and suddenly their whole attitude changed. Ms. Hayes, welcome. You need anything at all? Just let us know. Inside, it was organized chaos. Staff setting up chairs, testing microphones, rolling out carpets with sponsor logos, and there it was, 20 feet tall on the main stage backdrop, Hayes Industrial Solutions in clean white letters against navy blue. A woman in a headset spotted me. Ms. Hayes, I'm Jennifer, event coordinator. We've been expecting you. Everything on schedule? Yes, ma'am. And thank you again for stepping in last minute when Baxter Development pulled their sponsorship. 3 weeks doesn't give us much time normally, but your team made it seamless. I nodded. When exactly did Baxter pull out? Late September. We kept it quiet. Just swapped the branding and updated the website. Most attendees who registered back in July or August have no idea there was a sponsor change. That explained it. Dad would have registered months ago when Baxter was still listed as the platinum sponsor. Your keynote is at 6:45, right after the opening remarks. We've got your mic check scheduled for 5:30, and the VIP reception starts at 5 o'clock in the North Hall. She checked her tablet. The morning panel, panel 3, 10 o'clock a.m. tomorrow. Ethics and Modern Development. Your VP, Robert Ross, is confirmed as a panelist. Good. Can I see the stage? She walked me through the main hall, probably seats for 800 people, all facing a raised platform with podiums and screens. My company logo was everywhere. On the programs, the lanyards, the banners hanging from the ceiling. We've also got your press availability at 4:45, Jennifer said. Just a quick 5-minute thing. Couple of industry publications want quotes for their coverage. I checked my watch. 4:10. I'll be back at 4:30. Need to change first. I texted Robert on my way back to the hotel. Panel tomorrow. Tell the story if it comes up. His reply came back instantly. Your dad's going to be there. I know. 3 dots then. All right, I'm in. I changed into my suit. Charcoal gray. Simple. 7 years ago, I was sleeping in a truck. My phone had 12 texts from Derek, 6 from Dad. Ignored them all. Press interview at 4:40. Standard questions, until one reporter asked, "Did your father inspire your approach to business?" He taught me what kind of leader I didn't want to be. Her eyebrows went up, but she didn't push it. By 5:15, I was in the VIP reception area. It was a smaller hall connected to the main venue. Maybe 100 people networking over appetizers and drinks, industry veterans, CEOs, investors, the kind of people who made decisions that moved millions of dollars. Jake found me near the entrance. You see them yet? Who? Your family. They checked in 20 minutes ago. Dad's over by the bar talking to someone from Baxter Development. I scanned the room and spotted him, still in his suit from the airport, looking polished and professional like always. Derek was next to him, laughing at something. Jackson stood with them in a sharp navy suit, Monroe portfolio tucked under his arm. They hadn't seen me yet. Too busy working the room, handing out business cards, doing the networking dance. Let them have their moment, I said. They'll figure it out soon enough. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. to texts from Jake. Panel starts at 10:15. Robert's nervous. Also, your dad tried to corner me at breakfast. I got dressed and headed downstairs. The hotel restaurant was packed with summit attendees, everyone in business casual eating overpriced eggs. I grabbed coffee and a bagel, found a table in the corner. Jake showed up 5 minutes later. What did Dad want? I asked. Kept asking questions about Hayes Industrial, who we work with, what our revenue is if we're hiring. I played dumb, said I just handle paperwork. He knows you're my partner. Yeah, but he's pretending he doesn't. Probably hoping to get information without directly asking you. We finished eating and walked over to the convention center. The main hall was already filling up, people finding seats, checking schedules on their phones. The morning panels were in smaller breakout rooms off to the side. Panel 3 was in conference room B, maybe 200 seats, half full. When we got there, Robert was already on stage with 3 other panelists, testing his microphone. He saw me, gave a small nod. I sat in the back row. Jake sat next to me. More people filtered in over the next 10 minutes. Then I saw Dad and Derek walk in, Jackson between them. They sat about 6 rows from the front, right side. Dad had a notebook out like he was planning to take notes. The moderator stepped up at exactly 10:15 a.m. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel on ethics and modern development. We've got 4 industry leaders here to discuss contractor relations, sustainable practices, and accountability in our field. She introduced each panelist. When she got to Robert, she read his title. Robert Ross, VP of Operations at Hayes Industrial Solutions. I watched Dad's reaction. His head tilted slightly like he was trying to remember where he'd heard that name. Derek was scrolling on his phone, not paying attention. The first 20 minutes were standard panel stuff. Questions about environmental impact, worker safety, community engagement. Robert gave solid answers, professional and detailed. The other panelists were good too, but you could tell Robert actually knew what he was talking about from experience, not just theory. Then the moderator asked, Robert, you've been in this industry for 3 decades. Has the culture around ethics changed during that time? Robert adjusted his microphone. Yes and no. The regulations have improved. There's more oversight, but the fundamental challenge is still the same. Standing up for what's right when it costs you something. Can you give an example? He paused, glanced at me in the back row. I nodded once. Sure. About 7 years ago, I was working for a large commercial development firm. Won't name names, but it was a well-established company. We were bidding on a major project, and I noticed some of the environmental impact assessments were incomplete. Not wrong exactly, just missing key data that would have slowed us down. The room went quiet. People were actually listening. I brought it up to leadership. said we needed to redo the assessments properly before submitting the bid. I was told to mind my own business and focus on my job. So I went over their heads, contacted the regulatory board directly, figured someone had to. What happened? The moderator asked. I was fired the next day, escorted out by security, blacklisted in the industry, couldn't get hired anywhere for 6 months. Most people assumed I'd done something wrong because why else would a reputable company let me go, right? Dad was sitting perfectly still now. Derek had put his phone down. Then, I got a call from an old colleague, Linda Miller. She'd left Monroe to teach, said one of her former students had just started a development company and was looking for experienced people. 29 years old, working out of her truck, basically didn't care about my reputation, just wanted to know if I could do the work. The moderator leaned forward. Robert smiled slightly. Maria Hayes, 7 years ago. Now I'm VP of Operations for a company doing $200 million in contracts annually, and I've never once been asked to compromise my standards. The room erupted in applause. People were nodding. Some were writing notes. Dad's face had gone pale. Derek was staring at the stage. The moderator was smiling. That's a powerful story, Robert, and it brings up an important point about leadership and culture. The panel continued for another 20 minutes, but nobody was really focusing anymore. Robert's story was what everyone was going to remember. When it ended, people swarmed Robert with questions and business cards. I slipped out the side exit before Dad could spot me. Jake followed. That was perfect, bien, he said. Did you see your dad's face? Yeah. Twitter's already going crazy. Someone live-streamed the panel, and people are piecing together that Robert was talking about Monroe Industries. We headed back to the main hall. It was 11:30, still 5 hours before my keynote. I spent the afternoon in meetings with investors, shaking hands, talking about upcoming projects. Every conversation I could feel eyes on me. People knew who I was now. Not Richard Monroe's daughter, Maria Hayes, CEO. At 5 p.m., Jake found me. You ready? As I'll ever be. They're calling your name at 6:45. Full house, standing room only, apparently. We walked backstage. I could hear the crowd through the curtains, that low rumble of 800 people talking. Jennifer came over with a microphone pack. Ms. Hayes, you're on right after the opening remarks. 5 minutes. I clipped the mic to my collar. My hands weren't shaking. I was calm, focused. This was what I'd been building toward for 3 years. The announcer walked on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our platinum sponsor and keynote speaker, Maria Hayes, CEO of Hayes Industrial Solutions. The curtain opened. Stage lights hit my face. I walked out, and the applause was deafening. Front row, center seats, Dad, Derek, and Jackson. All three of them staring up at me with expressions I'd remember for the rest of my life. I stepped up to the podium and smiled. The applause died down, and I stood there for a second, letting the silence settle. 800 people waiting to hear what I had to say. I could see Dad in the front row, his jaw tight, hands gripping the armrests of his chair. 7 years ago, I pitched a business idea to someone I respected, I started. Spent months on the proposal, had all the research done, feasibility studies, financial projections. I thought it was solid. He laughed at me, told me I was living in a fantasy and needed to grow up. A few people in the audience shifted in their seats. 2 weeks later, that same person handed my entire portfolio to someone else and took credit for my work. So I left, packed my truck, took $4,000 from my savings account, and started over with nothing. I looked directly at Dad. He wasn't moving. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because that moment taught me something important. Belief is more valuable than pedigree. The people who bet on you when you have nothing are worth more than the ones who only show up when you're successful. More applause. Scattered but genuine. Hayes Industrial started with one contract, $38,000. A man gave me that opportunity, not because of my resume or my connections, but because he trusted my work ethic. That man is Robert Ross, my VP of Operations, and he's the reason this company exists. I spent the next 15 minutes talking about sustainable development practices, ethical contractor relationships, and how to build a company culture that actually values integrity over profit margins. When I finished, the crowd stood up. Not everyone, but enough that it felt real. I walked off stage and Jennifer met me backstage. That was incredible, Ms. Hayes. Press wants a follow-up interview if you have time. Maybe later. I need some air first. The VIP networking area was packed when I got there. People congratulating me, asking for business cards, trying to set up meetings. I nodded and smiled, but I was scanning the room for Dad. He found me first. Maria, his voice came from behind me. We need to talk. I turned. He looked older than he did this morning, tired around the eyes. Derek was next to him, trying to look casual, but failing. Impressive speech, Dad said. I had no idea you'd grown the business this much. You never asked. Fair enough. He glanced around at the crowd, lowered his voice. Look, I know things ended badly between us, but maybe it's time we put that behind us. There could be opportunities for us to work together. Monroe Industries has connections you could use, and your company has the kind of momentum we need right now. I almost laughed. Work together? Dad, you can't afford my consulting rates. His expression hardened. I'm still your father, Maria. Yeah, and I'm still the daughter you bet against. I kept my voice level, calm. The one you told wasn't cut out for the real world. Derek stepped forward, trying to play peacemaker. Come on, sis, that's ancient history. We're family. We should be celebrating this together, building something bigger than both our companies. Family, I repeated. You mean the brother who's been running the company Dad handed you into the ground? How's that Atlantic City project going, by the way? Derek's face flushed. That's not... We had permitting issues that were outside our control. I did the initial permit research for that project, had everything lined up. Then you took it over and skipped half the regulatory steps because you thought the Monroe name would get you through. Now you're 8 months behind and bleeding investor money. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I designed that proposal. Someone tapped my shoulder. I turned and Jackson was standing there, that same uncomfortable smile from the airport. Hey, Maria, he said quietly. Can we talk for a second? Privately? Derek's eyes went wide. Bro, what are you doing? I just want to talk to her. Is that okay? I looked at him, then at Derek. We don't have anything to talk about, Jackson. Please, just 2 minutes. We stepped away from Dad and Derek over to a quieter corner near the windows. He was nervous, adjusting his tie. I made a mistake, he said quietly. When we broke up, I should have believed in you. You're engaged to my brother, Jackson. Little late for regrets. I know, we're done here. I walked away before he could finish. Did you just hit on my fiancé? Derek said it loud enough that people nearby turned to look. No, he wanted to talk. I told him there was nothing to say. You've been rubbing this whole success thing in our faces all day, and now you're trying to take my guy, too. Derek, you're drunk. I'm not drunk. I'm pissed off. You think you're better than us now? You got lucky with some investors, and now you act like you built an empire. Jackson grabbed his arm. Derek, stop. Let's just go. He shook him off. No, I'm tired of this. She walks away from the family, refuses Dad's help, and then shows up here acting like some self-made hero. Dad tried to intervene. Derek, not here. Why not here? Everyone already knows. Robert told the whole story this morning. Might as well finish it. I stayed calm. You want to finish it? Fine. You got handed everything I built, every client relationship, every project proposal, every system I created, and you ran it into the ground because you thought the work didn't matter, just the name on the door. That's not true. Your stock's down 18% in 6 months. You've lost 3 major contracts. Investors are pulling out. But sure, keep telling yourself you're doing great. Derek's face went red. You're such a smug. And you're a trust fund kid who never had to earn anything. I looked at Dad. Both of you are. Dad's voice was quiet. Maria, please, let's not do this here. Do what? Tell the truth? I took a breath. You wanted me to learn the family business, Dad. Well, I did. I learned that people like you only value results when they come from people you've already decided matter. Everyone else is invisible. I started to walk away. Dad called after me, but I didn't turn around. Derek said something else, but I was already pushing through the crowd toward the exit. Jake caught up with me in the hallway. That looked intense. They tried to pitch working together like nothing happened. What did you say? That they can't afford me. He grinned. Cold. It's true. I checked my watch. 7:45. I need to get out of here. Too many people outside. The air was cold. Traffic noise everywhere. I just stood there for a second. You all right? Jake asked. Yeah. Just thought it would feel different. Winning? I nodded. I don't feel anything. They're just strangers now. Jake grinned. That's the real win, ma'am. I woke up the next morning to my lawyer calling at 7:15 a.m. It's done, Michelle said. Bankruptcy court approved the restructuring plan. You officially control 67% of Monroe Industries as of midnight last night. I sat up in bed. Any issues? None. The creditors were so desperate to recover anything that nobody contested it. Richard tried to file an objection yesterday, but his own lawyers told him it was pointless. We've scheduled an emergency board meeting for 10 o'clock a.m. to make the transition official. I'll be there. Jake and I met Michelle outside Monroe Industries at 9:45. She handed me a folder. They're already inside. CFO, 2 board members, and your family. They think this is a standard refinancing meeting. Let's get it over with. I opened the door. Dad was sitting at the head of the table like he still owned the place. Derek was next to him, scrolling his phone. The CFO, a guy named Patterson, looked up when we walked in. Maria. Dad stood up. What are you doing here? Sit down, Dad. Excuse me? Michelle walked to the front of the room and connected her laptop to the projector. A slide appeared on the wall. Monroe Industries restructuring. Hayes Capital Group. Dad stared at the screen. What is this? We're not restructuring. We're here to discuss debt refinancing options. No, Michelle said calmly. You're here because Monroe Industries filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection 72 hours ago, and Hayes Capital Group, as the primary creditor, has taken control of the restructuring process. The room went silent. Derek looked up from his phone. Wait, what? We didn't file for bankruptcy. Your CFO did, Michelle said, nodding at Patterson. At the recommendation of your legal counsel, you were 3 days from default on your credit facilities. It was either controlled bankruptcy or complete liquidation. Patterson looked miserable. Richard, I tried to tell you last week we were out of options. Michelle clicked to the next slide, showing the breakdown of debt acquisitions. For the past 18 months, Hayes Capital Group has been systematically purchasing Monroe Industries debt from various creditors at significant discounts. We bought your commercial real estate loans in March of last year, your vendor payment notes in July, your remaining credit facilities in November. 18 months. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Every time you tried to refinance, Hayes Capital was there, buying the old debt and refusing to renegotiate terms. We forced you into increasingly unfavorable positions until your debt load became unsustainable. She clicked again. Total investment, $14 million for debt instruments with a face value of $87 million. The creditors were happy to get 20 cents on the dollar. Derek was standing now. You can't do that. That's predatory. It's completely legal, Michelle said. Distressed debt acquisition is a standard investment strategy. Hayes Capital is registered in Delaware, operated through a New York office with no public connection to Hayes Industrial Solutions or Maria Hayes personally until now. Dad was staring at me. Hayes Capital. I've been getting letters from them for over a year. Every restructuring meeting, every refinancing attempt. That was you. I nodded. Every single one. Derek stood up. This is insane. You can't just buy someone's company without them knowing. Actually, we can, Michelle said. All transactions were legal and properly documented. The debt was sold willingly by the creditors. Patterson, the CFO, was reading through the documents Michelle handed out. This is all legitimate. Jesus, Richard, how did you not see this coming? Dad wasn't looking at the papers. He was looking at me. Why? Because you built this company on my mother's life insurance money and then ran it into the ground trying to make Derek into something he's not. That's not. The Atlantic City project alone lost you $15 million. The casino deal in Connecticut, another $8 million. You've blown through almost every reserve account trying to cover Derek's mistakes. Derek's face went red. Those weren't mistakes. Those were calculated risks. Calculated? I pulled out my own folder, slid it across the table. You skipped environmental assessments, ignored permitting requirements, and used subcontractors with safety violations. That's not risk. That's negligence. Dad picked up the folder, started reading. His hands were shaking slightly. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You've got 60 days to transition out. There's a severance package on the table, pretty generous considering the circumstances. I'm keeping Patterson and most of the operations team. Derek, you're terminated effective immediately. Derek jumped up. You can't fire me. I control 67% of the restructured company through the debt conversion. I can do whatever I want. Dad, say something. But Dad was just sitting there, staring at the numbers in the folder. All the failed projects, all the money lost, all the employees who'd left because of mismanagement. What about the Monroe name? He finally asked. I'm keeping it temporarily for client continuity. Rebrand happens in 6 months. The name Monroe doesn't mean what it used to. So that's it. You're just taking everything. I stood up. No, I'm taking what you destroyed. Monroe Industries had 400 employees 7 years ago. You bled it down to 120 through incompetence and nepotism. The ones who are left deserve leadership that won't drive them into the ground. Dad's voice cracked. This company is my legacy. Your legacy walked out 7 years ago when you chose Derek over doing the right thing. What's left is just a name on a building. Michelle started passing out more documents. Everyone here will receive detailed transition plans. Employees will be notified this afternoon. Mr. Monroe, your office needs to be cleared by November 1st. I headed for the door. Jake followed. Behind us, I could hear Derek starting to argue with Michelle, demanding lawyers, threatening lawsuits that would go nowhere. We took the elevator down to the lobby. My phone was already blowing up with texts. Robert had heard somehow, sent a message. Did you actually buy Monroe? I texted back. Yeah. Tell the team we're expanding operations. A lot of new employees coming on board. Outside, it was raining. That cold October rain that makes everything look gray. Jake and I stood under the building awning watching taxis go by. How do you feel? He asked. Tired. That's it? I thought about Dad sitting in that conference room, reading through the evidence of his own failure. Thought about Derek realizing everything he'd been handed was gone. Thought about walking out of that building 3 years ago with nothing. Yeah, I said, that's it. My phone rang. Dad calling. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, Derek called. Voicemail again. Then Jackson, which was weird. Voicemail. You going to listen to those? Jake asked. Eventually. A town car pulled up, our driver from earlier. Where to, Ms. Hayes? Airport. We're done here. 40 minutes later, we were back at Teterboro. Captain Stevens had the jet ready. Jake settled in with his laptop. What's first when we land? Newark site, 3rd building. The plane taxied and Manhattan disappeared behind us. My phone buzzed one more time. Text from Dad. Can we please talk about this? I typed back. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choices. I made mine. Deleted it. Typed instead, take care of yourself, Dad. Hit send. Put the phone on airplane mode. Jake looked over. That it? That's it. The jet lifted off and I closed my eyes. Felt the engines pushing us up through the clouds. When I opened them again, we were above everything. Just open sky in all directions. Somewhere below, Dad was probably packing his office. Derek was probably calling lawyers. Jackson was probably regretting every choice he'd made in the last 4 years. But up here, none of that mattered. I pulled out my laptop and opened the file for the next development project. Dubai was done, Newark was ahead of schedule, and we had 3 more proposals waiting for review. The work never stopped. That was the whole point. That was the end of it. No dramatic calls, no revenge speeches, no grand reconciliation. Just quiet. The kind that used to scare me because it meant I was truly on my own. Now it meant peace. By the time we landed, the clouds had thinned into pale gold, the horizon stretching endless over the skyline. I looked out the window, the city lights below flickering like sparks. I thought about the years I'd spent chasing validation that never came, the late nights, the doubt, the small victories no one saw but me. For so long, I thought success would feel like a roar, A thunderclap that finally silenced every voice that told me I'd never make it. But it wasn't like that. It was quiet, steady, like the hum of the engines beneath me. Jake leaned across the aisle, grinning. "So what's next, boss?" I smiled faintly. "We build. Bigger, smarter, cleaner. We keep our word. We take care of our people." He nodded, satisfied. "That's why you win, Maria." Outside, the clouds broke open to reveal the city glinting under a gray morning sky. I thought about my mother, about the insurance money she never knew would one day become the seed for everything I'd built. I wondered if she'd be proud, not just of what I made, but of who I became. I opened my laptop again. New contracts, new blueprints, new opportunities. The work never stopped. It was the one constant in my life that never lied, never flattered, never failed me. Somewhere, Dad was probably still convincing himself he'd find a way to come back. Derek was likely spinning a story to investors about being blindsided. Jackson was probably realizing the world didn't revolve around proximity to power. But me, I was already gone. Higher, lighter, freer. As the jet began its descent, I took one last look out the window, my reflection against the clouds. The girl who once begged to be believed in was gone. The woman staring back didn't need permission anymore. "Wheels down in 15, Captain Stevens said over the intercom. I closed the laptop, leaned back in my seat, and exhaled. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't running from anything. I was flying toward everything that was mine.